I was watching through the doorbell camera as my mother was on her knees collecting her belongings that this bastard threw onto the lawn, and my father was clutching his heart and his hands were shaking, and Arthur was standing over them in his white sneakers worth 300,000 and laughing, calling them beggars, saying that their old Toyota was ruining the view of his elite neighborhood and that people like them don't belong here, and I was squeezing my phone so hard the screen cracked. And in that moment, I understood that I would no longer stay silent, would no longer hide behind modesty, would no longer pretend this didn't concern me. Because he thought he had bought this neighborhood, but he didn't know that I had just bought him. My parents lived their whole lives like monks. Mom was an elementary school teacher. Dad was a librarian at the district library. Modest salaries, even more modest demands. They didn't go on vacations, didn't change cars every 3 years, didn't buy themselves anything unnecessary. For 30 years, they saved every penny for one dream. Their own house with a garden where mom could grow roses and dad could read on the porch. When they finally bought this plot in the suburbs, I saw how their eyes lit up. The house was small, but theirs. The garden was overgrown, but with potential. They were happy. I, unlike them, chose a different path. After university, I went into investments, then risk management, then opened my own fund for managing distressed assets. In simple terms, I buy the debts of companies on the verge of collapse and either save them or squeeze them dry. Cruel? Yes. Profitable? Very. I made my money by 32, but never advertised it. Drove an unassuming car, rented an apartment downtown, helped my parents anonymously, transferred the money supposedly from a teacher support program or a library grant. They didn't know I was behind it. I didn't want them to feel indebted, but I was always nearby, invisibly, like insurance. Arthur Sokoloff moved into the mansion next door 6 months after my parents. 38 years old, inflated ego, inherited business that he didn't understand, but which was still running on inertia and a team of competent managers left over from his late father. He drove a Ferrari that roared so loud it gave my mother headaches. Threw parties until 4 in the morning with music that made the windows shake. Parked on other people's lawns because it was more convenient for him. His security guards, 2 muscle heads with brick brains, chased away neighborhood kids if they played too close to his fence. Arthur considered himself master of life. For him, honest work was synonymous with failure, and modesty was a sign of poverty, which he despised physiologically. My parents tried to get along with him. Mom even baked a pie and brought it to him, introduced herself, asked him to turn down the music at night. He took the pie, threw it in the trash right in front of her and said, "I don't eat what poor people cook. You lower the value of my house just by your presence." Dad said nothing then. Mom cried at home, but asked me not to interfere when I came to visit them for the weekend. "We'll manage," she said. "We don't want problems." I promised not to create problems, and I kept my promise because I didn't create problems, I created solutions. The incident happened on a Friday evening. My parents' dog, an old Labrador named Baron, wandered onto Arthur's property. Didn't do anything, just walked across the lawn. Arthur came out of the house, grabbed Baron by the collar, and threw him over the low fence back. The dog yelped, limped away. Dad came out to sort things out. What happened next, I saw on the recording from the doorbell camera that my father sent me. Arthur was standing on the threshold of his mansion and yelling, "Your filthy mutt ruined my English lawn. Do you know how much it costs?" "She didn't mean to. She's old, just got lost," Dad began. "I don't care. I'm sick of you, of your poor wife, of your piece of junk on wheels, of the fact that you even live here. This neighborhood is for people, not for trash." Mom ran out onto the porch. "Please calm down." "Shut up, old woman." Arthur stepped toward her. "If you don't get out of here voluntarily in a week, I'll make your life hell. I know people. I can destroy you." Dad tried to stand between him and Mom. Arthur pushed him. Dad, who was 68, fell onto the asphalt. I rewatched that recording 10 times. On the 11th, I stopped feeling anger. Only cold calculation remained. I started with reconnaissance, 2 days of work by my analyst, and I received the complete financial picture of Arthur Sokoloff. My analyst, a former forensic accountant named Dmitri, delivered a 50-page report that read like a thriller about financial suicide in slow motion. Arthur's dealership network consisted of 5 locations generating $18 million annually. Impressive until you saw the expenses. Lease payments consumed 30% of revenue. But the real hemorrhage was inventory financing. Short-term loans at 17% interest to stock showrooms with luxury vehicles that weren't selling. The carrying costs were eating him alive. His personal finances were even more grotesque. The mansion was mortgaged for $4.2 million at an adjustable rate that had jumped from 4 to 7%. His monthly payment had increased by $12,000 overnight. The Ferrari, the Rolex collection, trips to Monaco, all financed on credit cards and personal loans secured against business equity. The truth, Arthur was running a Ponzi scheme with his own life, using new debt to service old debt, one missed payment away from collapse. I called my contact at a boutique debt acquisition firm. "I need you to approach Regional Trust Bank. I want Sokoloff's paper, both residential and commercial." "What's your ceiling?" The combined debt was $6.8 million. Offer them $3.7 million. Tell them it's cash, no contingencies, closes in 2 weeks. The bank bit. They signed for $4.1 million. A guaranteed payout today versus 18 months of legal warfare. Easy decision. The assignment of debt was executed on a Thursday. I now owned Arthur Sokoloff's financial soul. I gave him weeks. Wanted to watch him continue his parties while the noose-eyed tide tightened invisibly around his neck. I also filed complaints with the HOA, noise violations, parking infractions, harassment evidence. I buried them in documentation. Then I contacted Arthur's largest dealership clients, asking as a concerned potential investor about contingency plans if Sokoloff Auto Group entered receivership. 2 of 3 moved their business elsewhere within a month. Arthur's cash flow became critical. He missed payroll. Employees quit. His competent sales manager took a job with a competitor. The dominoes fell, and Arthur blamed everyone but himself. Day X came on a Saturday. Arthur was throwing another party. Music thundering, guests spilling across his property. I arrived at 9 p.m. with my attorney, a notary, and a process server. We looked like death in corporate clothing. Arthur's security guard intercepted me. "Private party." I smiled. "Tell Mr. Sokoloff his new landlord needs to speak with him immediately." I handed him an envelope. "This is his formal notice of possession, transfer, and demand for payment or evacuation. You can give it to him, or I can serve him in front of his guests." 2 minutes later, the music cut off. Arthur emerged, face flushed with fury. "What the fuck is this? I own this house." "Owned, past tense. Your mortgage was sold to my company 7 weeks ago. You missed 4 payments. Ownership transferred via foreclosure finalized Tuesday. Here's the certified judgment." He scanned the pages. Judgment in favor of plaintiff. Transfer of title. Vacate within 72 hours. This is illegal. I bought your debt, the debt you failed to service. The house was collateral. This isn't personal, Arthur. This is math. But it was personal. Recognition crept across his face. You're their son, the old people next door, the old people whose dog you assaulted, whose dignity you tried to destroy. I stepped closer. Money doesn't make you untouchable. It makes you leveraged, and leverage cuts both ways. His guests gather behind him, phones recording. You have 72 hours, or you can stay. I'll lease to you $18,000 per month, $54,000 up front. Do you have it? His face went gray. We both knew he didn't. I'll sue you. With what legal team? I've also acquired your business debt. Sokolov Auto Group goes into receivership Monday. I'm installing my own management. You're out. His glass fell, shattering on marble. You told my parents they were trash. Funny thing about neighborhoods, they're defined by who owns the dirt, and now I own yours. 71 hours later, a moving truck arrived. I watched from my parents' porch as Arthur supervised the loading, his face hollow. He drove away in the Ferrari, sold it within a week. I demolished the fence between the properties, expanded my mother's garden by 6,000 square feet, installed the greenhouse she'd always wanted. My father built a reading nook on Arthur's former terrace. Arthur now rents a one-bedroom apartment on the industrial side of town, works as a sales manager at a used car lot. His social media went dark. His friends vanished. I could have destroyed him completely, but I left him just enough to survive, to remember every day what he lost and why. Because sometimes mercy is making sure the punishment lasts. Justice isn't karma. Justice is when you do the math yourself, and the equation balances perfectly. And late at night, when I see my mother in her garden and my father on his porch, I think about Arthur in his cramped apartment, and I sleep better than I ever have.